Good? Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Record of attendance, Jody, you're good? Declarations of conflict of interest, anyone? Approval of agenda, additions or deletions. Now, I saw one addition here, and is it this one, the tender for the plow truck? That's it. Okay, so I'll put the tender for the plow truck under 9A. Tender for the plow truck, Danny, I think it was just put on your desk. It was left on the desk. Any other additions?
Accept the agenda with the addition.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Okay. Staff reports. CAO. Please let this work for the first time. It does.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report is attached. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
We good? Yeah, okay. Yeah, good? Okay. All right, fire department report. The chief's not here right now, but can certainly, if there's any questions. Good. Stop me if I'm going too fast. Planning department report. Planner got married. That's a good thing to report.
Was she back to work?
Monday. 31st. Good. Okay, Caroline will be back on Monday, so we can direct any questions to her when she comes back. Operations, our engineer's here. Dave, any questions for Dave? Go ahead.
How's the new RCMP station coming, Dave?
Right at the moment, we're just waiting for the glazing for the anti-vault counter in the main office area, so it's not operational at the present time without that. So it's basically substantially complete. So
Okay, so maybe so on your side of it, once that happens, and basically we can turn it back over to the RCMP, and they can.
the final cleaning is scheduled for August the 31st, which is Monday, I guess.
Okay, good.
Wow.
Have you talked to the staff sergeant, Jeff, or the acting staff sergeant? Just they giving you any heads up when they're looking to move in, or not really? We're just waiting for the final approval and cleanup.
Good. Good, thank you. Councillor Dennis?
Thank you, Your Worship. Dave, I was just wondering about, I had made a motion about Jenkins and Main Street, about the off-ramp there, pedestrian ramp, and you sent us a letter on the difference in the slope there. I was just wondering, is that going to be fixed this year, or does that have to go into next year's budget?
That's included in this year's sidewalk work, so it just hasn't been done yet.
Okay, so it will be done this year before winter?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Anything else for the engineer? Good. Thanks, Dave. Finance, Jerry's there. How we doing, Jer?
Just a quick update. The auditors are back in the office. We had a little few things we had to investigate with the new system, just in our conversion still. So we got through that. Auditors are back, and things seem to be working or going a lot smoother now. We ran our tax bills yesterday, so we've had a lot of phone calls actually in the last week, people looking for their tax bills. So tax bills are printed and being mailed out today, tomorrow. The last ones will probably be mailed tomorrow. On the budget side of that picture, on $10.9 million, we're off by about $2,400 in our tax revenues. So pretty close there. So, and again, I don't have a financial for you, but I keep checking our main accounts, and again, we seem to be running right along where we should be for those main accounts, so I'm comfortable with where we are at this point.
Good. Any questions for Jerry? Yarmouth Recreation, was there there wasn't a report. Didn't see there. Economic Development, Natalie. Any questions for Natalie? How we doing? I know. So there's just so council is aware, below in business, we've got some requests for decisions, I believe, attached to you. Okay, or your department. So those are, they are with this report, just in case later we're looking for them, but they're in behind the report, your first few pages. Yeah. Councillor Dennis?
Yes. The TV show Still Standing Season 2, if we put in that application, is there a cost to the town for this? For the application, no. No, well, if we get accepted, is there a cost?
There isn't a cost to CBC. I mean, if we want to, typically, there's sort of a town hall event where they come and they do the stand-up show. So it depends on what we want to do. But from the episodes, which I've shown you a link to, where you can go and take a look at the Berwick one especially, they just had it in a community center, and it was a stand-up show. So I don't believe there's anything else other than us identifying those unique characters within our community to tell our story.
Okay, thank you.
So you'll be here, you're going to stay so that we can, to answer questions from what's below there. Councillor Lancho?
Yeah, so just want to make sure, because, and just reiterate what Councillor Dennis must have another question. So you're positively 100 guaranteed % sure there's no additional costs for that show before we submit an application? Because oftentimes we've had people like this in before, and there's like a fee that, like expenses sometimes for the crew and stuff like that.
I am not 100%, but I will contact my contact in Berwick
Yeah.
and confirm it and send you an email before you make
That
the
would be
final
really
decision.
helpful, Your Worship, just to
Yeah.
be warm and fuzzy, because sometimes we get swept up in the event and all of a sudden, bang, we're getting a little bill at the end, so I'm just a little bit concerned about that. The other thing is, and maybe to the CAO, because I know you direct this sort of thing, in these economic development reports, I'm still they all start in March 2015 and they go right through. Is it necessary to have all the back history? I mean, the event's been completed and it's been done and it's history, because I'm visualizing that by the end of this year, there's going to be one brutal report. And I know Natalie's highlighted the August, which is useful, at least you know where to go with that page, but I'm wondering if maybe we could be a little bit more succinct. I'm just a thing, it'd be easier for me to read. I mean, it's kind of interesting, but we always have it on our background if we want to go back and check. I'd just like to be able to glance at, okay, what has happened in August? You know, I mean, God love her, she's done a great job in March, April, May, and June, but that's history, because I hate to see the CAO's report get like that, and the planner's report, and the other reports. There'd be a lot of reading here.
Go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, so the report, Your Worship, is for your benefit. Natalie knows what she does, and I have a pretty good idea, so it is for your benefit. So if it makes it easier for you to have it culled down to sort of the current things, then I'm sure Natalie can accommodate that.
I can change that.
That's what I do with my report, is once you've seen something as completed, it won't show up on another report if I press the right buttons.
So I will just show the open items then?
I don't know, I like seeing the background, but it doesn't matter.
Ken,
Well,
not-
we can look it up.
Ken, not to be different, I like the history.
I do too.
And I read mostly the current activity, but I do like the history, and sometimes that's what I'll do. But not to be different than what you've just said. It's not taking up a lot of room. I'm happy with the way it is.
Okay. We good?
Yeah?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is from Ken is, that sort of Councillor Langell, is you'd like to be able to just see the current stuff succinctly, easily, and but others want to see the history there as well. Given that it's electronic, it really doesn't take room so much, as long as it's, the readability is that you can immediately see the current stuff. So we'll look at that, Natalie, and see if we can come up with a little format tweaking to hopefully make everyone happy.
Absolutely.
Good? Okay. Economic, okay, August report, facade update revised. Oh, you don't have to, you're just showing us these? Okay, good. Councillor Dennis?
Natalie, I just have a question on the application. If your application has been approved, but the work hasn't been completed by October 31st, is that still honored?
That would be under consideration for the society to make that decision. But I think given that if we have many more rainy days and depending on contractor availability, as long as the application has been approved, and we're within our funding limit, the answer is yes. They
Okay.
can complete the work after, but the applications must be approved.
Yeah, because it's hard getting contractors to do some of these jobs because of the weather and everything. So
yeah,
I know we've
yeah.
been waiting for
Yeah,
all summer.
yeah, we recognize that big time.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Good. On top, are they coming in? On top? Okay. Okay, so we'll go to business. Discussion paper, municipal government, school board elections. I'm gonna need this. Go ahead, CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the province has sent out a discussion paper on proposed changes, current issues, and some discussion questions concerning the municipal and school board elections that are coming up next year. They're considering some changes that are outlined in the discussion paper. There's really two parts to the discussion paper. One is a discussion of, I think it's 10 proposed changes that they're looking for feedback on. And the second section is later on, page 15, where they have some discussion questions that are, 5 discussion questions that are particular to campaign financing. So I don't know if you've had a chance to read through the discussion paper. There are a couple of changes that I think are probably more significant than the others. In my opinion, you may differ. One is the change to residency requirements. What they're basically saying in this proposal is that for municipal elections, as long as you've been a resident of Nova Scotia for 6 months, you can become a resident of the municipality in which you're voting on that day. So you aren't required to live in the town of Yarmouth for more than a few hours before you could actually vote in the town of Yarmouth, as long as you've been a resident of Nova Scotia for the last 6 months. The other is that they will allow an oath if you can't confirm your identity and your eligibility to vote. They're willing to allow an oath to do that. And those are really, I mean, you may differ in terms of your experience with elections, but those are a couple of things that I thought were more significant in the changes.
Deputy?
Jeff, just thinking about the change of residency requirement. So someone comes in and wants to vote, they have to prove that they're a resident of Nova Scotia, though. And I wonder how they go about doing that. A health card, a license, or a witness. I read through some of this, and it's kind of interesting, actually, but
Yeah. Sorry, didn't see that.
So Your Worship, I read those two changes that I highlighted kind of together. One is that an oath would simply do it. The returning officer or the poll clerk, whoever would administer an oath confirming your eligibility, identity, but it is on the elector, to be honest. And if it's found later that an ineligible elector misrepresented themselves to the returning officer, then I suppose there might be consequences for that. But that is for somebody to make a complaint. So in a very close election, somebody might scrutinize the poll book and see, who's voted and say, wait a minute, that person hasn't lived in Nova Scotia for 6 months, isn't eligible, and maybe if an election was decided by one vote, that might be significant and maybe a basis on which you might petition to have an election overturned. Or no, and that doesn't matter. What we found out in the school board election last time with the African Nova Scotian elector issue is that the test that had to be proven is that the error or the irregularity could have affected the outcome, not that it actually did.
Go ahead.
So, if I'm reading this right, I'm back to the residency requirements. A town councillor, in essence, would not really be representing the town. The town councillor would be representing all of Nova Scotia, technically, in some respects, because hypothetically, I could go down to Guysborough, get a bus, transport people around my summer home to Yarmouth. They arrive in a bus, and they're there ordinary voting on polling day, and they can vote. Similarly, if I wanted to get people out of Digby, they could come here to vote on election day, or Port Maitland, or Sanford, or Wellington. That's the way I'm reading this, because you've got to be a resident of the province for a number of months, and you have to be here on polling day. You've got to be sitting here on polling day. Now, that's going to make a real interesting situation for campaigning, for those who dare want to get into this realm again, but because it changes the whole fabric, especially a community like Yarmouth, where, with all due respect, our municipal colleagues do not have the amount of, shall we say, supporters when you look at actual people who are voting. If you look at the councillors, their numbers, and CAO, you can correct me, but they're like 300, 400 voters, whereas we are tending to garner 1,400 or 1,500 voters in order to get over the magic level. So it would change, and maybe the mayor, because she's on UNSM, she's probably seen this. I'm curious her comments on this, because this will change the whole fabric of municipal government, in my opinion, because now suddenly, if you've got a passionate issue that goes on in a community, be it Yarmouth, Digby, or whatever, that involves a municipality, hypothetically neighboring, and people are upset at the town, they simply got to stack the election in the town, and guess what? There's no issue anymore. I'm just kind of curious if, now, what happens to this discussion paper? I assume we can give feedback later on to this, or, so these are my two questions. I'm curious. It's going to change the face, that's for darn sure.
So, Your Worship, the condition that's outlined on the issue of residency, they use the term, and they put it in quotes, ordinary residents. So in order to be eligible to vote in the town of Yarmouth on election day, you need to be an ordinary resident. You need to move here. So I don't, it is, the term is defined in the Act. I don't have the definition in front of me, but I guess that's the part that one would be swearing oath to, is that they meet that definition on election day. One of the issues, and it's identified in the paper that this is intended to address, is students. Right, students come in the 1st of September, early September, the election's mid-October, they don't meet the 3-month requirement for ordinary residents, but this change would allow them, because they would be ordinary resident for 6 months, or for 6 weeks at that point, to vote in the municipality where they're living at that time. I don't think simply putting a bunch of people on a bus, unless they meet the condition of ordinary resident, would work, and that might draw a challenge in a close election.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just rereading that ordinary resident thing.
Yeah, so what I would be hoping to do is, if you wished, or if, I guess more to the point is, if you had a concern about these proposed changes, that we would make the province aware of the concern. If you're agreeable to it, then, I mean, it seems like they're headed in a direction here anyway, so if you're not concerned, then there's no need to necessarily respond in detail, but if you had a concern about something they're proposing that you thought was not good, then we should talk about that and decide if council wants to make a submission.
I kind of like the new concept that you can, you don't have to live here for 6 months. I think it's a great idea. I mean, you know, really, all they're doing is they're looking at it and they're saying, you know, this is the 21st century. I mean, people do up and move. People move quite frequently. And in Nova Scotia, if you live in the municipality and you move into the town, you could either become a candidate or you could be whatever, and you can vote. So I think it's a great idea right across Nova Scotia, and I would support it. And as far as the busloads of people, I support that also.
They can only live in one place at one time, so. That's right. Right, that covers it. So we good, Deputy?
Your Worship, Jeff, you hinted in your end of your remarks that do you want us to show support from a council point of view to these, or if so, then I would encourage a motion. But
Yeah, they're looking for feedback, and I think that, you know, it is something that directly affects you guys. You know, sort of process-wise, it affects us on this side of the organization. But as far as the you know, the election, that is stuff that affects you guys, you know, directly. And if you have feedback on changes to the process and the rules, then you know, we should make the province aware of that. They're doing this early enough to receive the feedback and perhaps react to it.
Sorry. There needs to be.
No, sir.
No, you're good. There needs to be something in place where they're sitting at that booth and they know that this person can vote. Maybe no. Tell me. How on earth are you going to know?
Well, and that is again, the onus is on the individual. The returning officer's job is not to investigate, as it says in the discussion paper. The returning officer's job is to administer and carry out a fair election. If somebody misrepresents the truth in their eligibility to vote, and that is discovered, then somebody can make a complaint, and that is an offense.
Okay.
Okay? But it is not the returning officer's job at the poll, if somebody's willing to take the oath and swear to the circumstances are true, it is not his or her job to investigate or to challenge. And that's true of any claim that somebody makes at the poll, whether it's eligibility for a particular ballot or to participate generally.
Good. Deputy?
well, I'm prepared to support the proposed changes as they are written and presented to us. I've read them a couple times actually, and so whatever it takes to get the ball rolling, I'll make a motion to that effect.
Okay. Councillor Langell?
It is, the submission has to be done tomorrow. That's the deadline.
Take it when you get it. Yeah. Calm question. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So if we can just quickly touch on the B part of the request, I guess, for feedback. There were 5 questions on page 15 related to campaign financing. And right now, I guess the rules are pretty vague, loose, and what have you on terms of campaign financing at the municipal level. As you may know, there were some media reports and some discussion around use of campaign funds in Halifax over the last couple of years. Mr. Savage was drawing a salary from the campaign contributions apparently, and some people thought that was unusual or questioned it, but in fact it's within the rules apparently. So the question, I think, has arose as a result of the media attention and the public discussion around that. And so the question is do we have any concerns about campaign financing and the rules around it? And if we do, this would be the opportunity to it could be that somebody would run for council that would mount a considerable financial effort and, challenge for one of your seats. And would we be concerned about the transparency of that effort, I guess is the question.
Do we not have to, as soon as the election's over, don't you have to say exactly who gave you the money? There's no anonymous, no, right?
Yep, and yeah, it is in there, and, but there are no limits. Okay, doesn't affect.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't touch mine, just, my God.
The CAO brings up a very interesting point. I do know, I remember in back in the old days, back in the election of '88, we did have one individual who did go out actively and raised $1,000 by $10,000 for his campaign. It mounted a very impressive campaign, but lost. But it is a situation where it's interesting because you're quite right. You could get somebody who has got deep pockets who may decide to finance a campaign or maybe a number of campaigns. Literally speaking, there's nothing stopping a resident in town right now to say drop $50,000 on the campaign trail and hoping to stack a council. I mean, that can be done very easily, or willingly go out, and that's not reported. And as for a reporting basis, the only incentive you have for reporting is to get back your deposit. Well, if you're going to be, I think that's all you have to do with that. Isn't that the whole principle?
So that was one of the recommendations in the first part, is that it wasn't, there are penalties in the Act, but they aren't tied directly to the reporting. And so I think it was recommendation number 2, if I just quickly flip to it. Yeah, number 2 was clarify penalties for not submitting campaign financing statements. So what they're proposing is up to 6 months in jail and or $2,500 fine. So that is in the Act, but it isn't tied directly to that section of the Act. So yeah, that would put a little more onus on that reporting.
So are we doing these questions one by one?
That's up to you. If you're not concerned with campaign financing, then there's no need to do.
Is anybody concerned? I just think it's transparent. but
Just a
that's
quick
maybe because
question,
follow
but
the
I
rules.
think under the Act, what we're doing here, they're cleaning it up, is what they're doing. So you will have to be reporting. You will have to say precisely where the money is coming from. Although the reality is, from a campaign point of view, you may, it's pretty hard to define how much money is spent by a candidate. I mean, you can go around and count signs or stuff like that and say each sign costs $10 or whatever it was. But the reality is, there is a lot of, shall we say, under the table, I use that word, but under the table campaign contributions where somebody will donate things. This I like because you now have to do accounting. You have to do accountability here. Well, it does happen. I mean,
No, I'm shaking my head because I'm like, well, I don't get this, because you just write all the names down. I don't care if it's $10
I know.
or 10,000, but there goes the naive, let's do it the honest way.
you'd be surprised though, some people don't want to be connected, and that does happen. Thanks.
Okay, good point. Okay, question's been called. All those in favor of what? Did we just do that? Yeah, we did that. We voted. Okay, so we're good. Okay. Coffer Expressions, Municipal Government Act Review Working Groups, CAO.
Thank you, Worship. So the province is doing a review of the Municipal Government Act. They've divided the Act into 6 parts, and they've put a call out for people from municipalities to participate. And what I've gone ahead and done is encouraged all of our directors to make a submission to participate. There are 5 sections of the Act that affect us. The only one that doesn't is villages. The 5 sections of the review. They're doing a review specific on villages, and that doesn't affect us directly. So each of the directors has made a submission, and although this is after the fact, and again, it was a deadline issue, I'm asking for council's full support for any of the staff members who get selected to participate in those groups.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Yeah, very good. Shell Canada exploratory drilling. Did I put something on here and not write anything? I think I did. I think I might have jotted, but I sent all of you that email just to have it on our radar for the, so we don't have to do anything with that really, because I've sent out the emails. Operational Services Parks Grounds Truck 2015. So we've got a tender here. Can't hear you. I'm sorry, can't.
We tendered for two three-quarter-ton trucks, so one for the Parks Department and one for Operational Services. We advertised on the provincial procurement site and the town's website. We got two responses back from Tuscott Ford and Murray GM. The results are as shown there. I'm recommending that we purchase the two trucks from the lowest tender, Tuscott Ford, in the amount of $28,825.88 each, plus HST.
Okay, so that's your recommendation?
Yep.
Okay.
Any questions for Dave on that? Or can we have a motion to, oh, sorry, Danny, didn't see
Okay,
it.
no problem.
Go ahead.
Dave, I will look it up again, but I forgot my glasses at home and I can't read the fine print. So are these three-quarter tons, full-ton trucks, or what are they?
Pardon me?
What size trucks are these?
Three-quarter ton.
Three-quarter ton. I read it, but I forgot, and I haven't got my glasses to go over it to read it again. So this is for each truck. It's how much?
$28,825.
Okay.
These are, they're a heavy-duty truck for
Yep.
a pickup truck.
Yep.
We found that they stand up better than
That's right.
the half-tons.
Okay, great. Well, I so move we accept the lowest tender bid. Thank you, Dave.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Questions been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Realtor RFP. CAO?
Thank you, Worships.
Yes, sir. Oh, sorry, Councilor.
I hate to interrupt, but I think I'd like to have this discussed in camera, please, if we could, after the meeting, because I got a couple concerns with this.
We good with that? Everybody? We're just gonna move it? Okay? Just remind Jody or Ken, remind us in there. Okay? Request for decision, CBC still standing. Okay, so that package is in the back of what Natalie gave us for, you'll be back, right? Yep, good. What Natalie gave us for her economic development package. Go ahead, CAO.
Thank you, Worship. So the recommendation is to seek council approval to submit the application with CBC television show Still Standing, Season 2. So we'd be looking for a motion of support.
Can we do that motion of support contingent upon finalizing extra fees? Would that be okay? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so within the 2 weeks before it comes back to council. Good. Yeah, exactly. Okay, Councilor Dennis?
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Questions been called? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. August 27th, request for a decision, Form Media Design.
So we, just making sure no one's behind me
Nope,
pressing
you're
buttons.
on camera now.
For media, we've been working with them over the last 3 months to identify our needs with regards to our wayfinding and place branding program. So they've come back with a quote that covers development, design, and a tender package that would go out to the individual contractors to provide the various items. So what you can see in front of you is a total quote for $54,000 and change.
57?
57. Oh, is that with the HST? 57?
Nope, plus HST. I just
Right.
want to make sure I'm looking at the right form. 57,221 and HST.
Right, for some reason, it's not in my package here. So that is the cost of doing that design. I showed you in the package. So the quality of the design would be at the level that they have done in the past for municipalities such as Lunenburg. I've cited a number of different programs that they have completed in 2015. Certainly, there are lots more on the list for 2014. One of the things I also identified is that this is part of the funding that we are receiving. Thank you very much. For some reason, not mine. That we're receiving through our ACOA grant. So we would get back 50% plus the non-rebatable HST.
Good? Councillor McIsaac?
Yeah, thank you, Natalie, for the report, but my question's for Jeff. Jeff, did we budget for this? Do we have the funding for this year? We did budget for it, okay. And that's part of the wayfinding, as she's saying, right? Okay, then. Thank you.
Good? Anything else for Natalie before we, so the recommendation is to seek approval to commence development and design process for town place branding and wayfinding program with Form Media.
I'll make that a motion, Your Worship.
Thank you. Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Request for decision, real estate brokerage services. Does that fall?
That's the only thing I'd like to throw that one after in Canada.
Okay, let's do that, and let's do that. Request for decision surplus high school furniture. Natalie, anything that you wanted to?
So, in receiving the transfer of the former high school in January, we are the proud owners of many chairs, desks, tables, and we really need to come up with a disposal strategy. So this is the strategy that I'm suggesting. As per the MGA Act, any equipment identified as surplus, we would work within the different town departments to identify if there's any needs there. I did do a walkthrough with an auctioneer, and his recommendation is that because of the multiple numbers of same items, it would not be a profitable opportunity to do it that way. So the recommendation that I'm making is that we do, after staff goes through what's there that's available for staff needs, that we would have a community sale, because there's a certain amount of memorabilia, I'm sure, within the community, and that from there, whatever is left, we would seek to sell it via Kijiji or a liquidator. So Mr. Ernst has kindly allowed me to get some of his staff to do an inventory of that, and once we get that typed up, I will pass that on to council.
Good. So what I'm seeing is that staff be directed, maybe? Staff be directed to sell surplus furniture, equipment, and various sundry items transferred with the old high school. Moved and...
No, I'm not going to second it yet, but I'll second it for discussion.
Yeah.
But on the furniture items and all the things that's in there, I know when provincial or federal have any surplus, they usually like to go to the nonprofit organizations that's in the area also, and ask if they need anything like, you know, Split Rock or whatever, different organizations. There's a lot of organizations in town, and probably organizations that might want to get into the learning part of it. I mean, if they could access free desks and what have you, or tables, whatever that's in there, I don't know how many nonprofit organizations would go forward with this, but I think they should be included in that before it all goes to the out to a sale to the public. So if we would consider that, I'd be I would second that motion to keep that as a second motion. But I think we should really look at that, and we shouldn't be so too quick to get rid of all the assets that's in there, when there might be somebody that might be looking at the building that might want to start up maybe whatever kind of learning facility that's already in there. So I don't know. Is it too quick to sell all the assets that's in there? I don't know. It's something we should give it a little bit more thought, rather than getting rid of it all and then have second thought and say, well, perhaps we should have kept that. There might be more opportunities out there for people that haven't really come forward, that really don't know that there's a building, a whole school full of whatever's there, ready for them to take over and take charge. So I don't know. I think we might be working at it too quick, but if staff is directed to do it, it doesn't mean we really have to do it, I don't think. Am I correct? By putting it out for sale or tender? Jeff?
If you'd rather defer the item, you can defer it, or you can put a timeline on it, not before, right? So either don't make a decision, right, defer it to a later meeting, and then we deal with it. Or if you're concerned that the sale would happen too quickly, you might say not before, you know, a certain date.
Well, in this matter, you know, I think of just getting rid of all the assets in there, I think we haven't got the building long enough, and we only had one or two responses, maybe only one response of what I was reading earlier. So there might be different opportunities for more people out there that would take the building fully operational and ready to go with learning equipment and that in there, i.e. the tables, chairs, what have you, that's already in the school. So I don't know. I would like to have a little bit more time. If it takes to defer it for our next council meeting till we get an inventory of whatever's in there and what's there and what's, you know, so we could really have a look at it. I'd like to even go look at the place to see what's in there, just out of curiosity. And I haven't done that as of yet because I've been busy doing other things. So if I have a chance to do that, I would, but I'd like to postpone it if I could.
Councilor Langell?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry I had to zip out there, but I don't want to repeat Councillor McIsaac, but I've had the opportunity to be in that school now several times over the summer with reunion groups. The amount of asset there is negligible, to be perfectly honest. You know, you have some old chairs, you have some old tables, you have some materials. To me, it looks better in a way to have the materials there. Now, the materials that are there are education-based materials, tables, chairs for classrooms, and things that could be used if maybe a user down the road wants to set up an educational facility. Some of them are not too bad a shape, to be honest. There's a lot of junk there as well. I'm not hearing all the debate, and I apologize for that. I had to run out. But to me, I agree with Councillor McIsaac. I think we should just hold off and let's see what proposals come in, because maybe somebody who wants to purchase that may have use for some of that material. To me, it needs to be tidied up a little bit. But, you know, surprisingly, the building is in excellent condition. You know, our staff has done an admirable job keeping it maintained and over the summer. But if you make more than $1,000 for the assets that's there, you'd be lucky, in my opinion, because there really is not a lot of stuff there. The school board took most of everything out that was of consequence. I mean, you may have some chairs and tables that would get you negligible results. So personally, I would, you know, in some respects, go in there and just put it all in one room kind of a thing, or put it in a place centrally, because you do have a desk here and a chair there, and it's kind of scattered, but you're lucky if you have a whole classroom full of materials. Like I think there's some student desks there, but most of it is tables and stuff that really I don't think the schools wanted themselves, but it's something that somebody could use down the road. So I'd recommend that we hold off on this until after the Economic Development Officer, you know, comes in with some proposals, or whoever's going to come in with proposals on this thing, and maybe they'd want it. Maybe I'm missing something on this, but to me,
No, that's what
to me, exactly, I just hold off. There's no panic on this.
Yeah. So let's go. Go ahead, CAO.
Just process-wise, we've talked about strategies to divest the building. Strategy that council endorsed was to seek a realtor, which we did an RFP for. We have received one proposal, which we'll just deal with later today. Council has not, and I could be corrected on this, but has not directed that the RFP be issued, seeking proposals. So we have received one unsolicited proposal that we'll hear about later today. But in terms of other proposals, other than outright purchases, there's nothing for anyone to respond to at this point. So that's just in case there was any misconception that there was an RFP out. Okay, so it isn't out, but that doesn't say it couldn't be. Natalie prepared the document, and as we'll hear later today, somebody has requested that ahead of the actual for sale sign going on the building. So that's.
So we good to table it? Yeah. So do I need a motion to table? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Yes. Perfect. Okay, good, thank you. Surplus High School, okay, correspondence for action. What's for action here, do you know? Nothing, okay? That's why there's nothing listed. Previously distributed. Additions, tender for the plow truck. I had that in front of me, but is that yours or mine? Oh,
I went out to tender for the supply of a new plow truck for the town to replace the 2002 Freightliner plow truck, which we have in our fleet. We advertised on the provincial procurement website and on the town's website. We received 3 responses from truck dealers in the province with 5 separate prices. Responses, I summarized the responses on the sheet attached to my memo, and we identified a number of items that would be taken into consideration when awarding the tender, and basically meets or exceeds spec, tender forms are complete, performance experience with manufacturer's equipment, references, delivery dates, service parts facilities. Anyway, I reviewed the tenders with regard to compliance with our specs as well as the other items that were listed. The lowest tender was Silver's Garage, and they're the dealer for international trucks. I had a little bit of concern with regard to the international truck, as we have 3 in our fleet now, and we've had a few issues with the emission control system with those trucks. And after doing some research and verifying with the dealer, International has redesigned their engine and the emissions control system, and they're now using a Cummins regeneration system, which is a much better system, and it's a proven system. So after I learned that, I was my mind was a little eased, and I have no problem with recommending that we award the tender to Silver's Garage in the amount of $150,800 plus HST. The budget for the plow truck was $135,000 in this year's budget, and the increase in cost is probably mostly due to the current exchange rate with the U.S. and Canadian dollar. This information is for your approval.
thank you, Dave. Councillor Landry?
Dave, I noticed that too, you had the concern. So do we have assurances, like what kind of a warranty do we have on this thing? So if, for example, it does arrive, and let's say hypothetically we go with the tender, and you discover it ain't what they're supposed to be, salesmen are good sometimes. What kind of assurances do we have there?
Well, it'll be under warranty for the specified period, but I mean,
Good, okay.
I didn't particularly take the word for it. I went and looked for documentation in the international truck website and so on, and I found a number of articles as well that listed the various types of systems that they use for emission controls now, and the one that they've changed to is a much better system.
Good, good. Given that, Your Worship, I'd make a motion that we accept the engineer's recommendation to award the tender to Silver's Garage Limited to the amount of $150,800 plus HSD for the new plow truck for the town of Yarmouth.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Oh, sorry, good. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Jeff, do we have the extra funding for this? We had the funding for that in the first place. My next question will be to you, Dave. The truck that we're replacing, what kind of shape is that truck in? Can that be used for I'll say it right up front, maybe for the airport or something like that? Could they purchase that as a surplus from the town of Yarmouth and use it as a plow for the airport or another organization that the town's in with? So that's my question, either you or Jeff.
Well, it requires a little bit of work at the present time, and we're going to get an estimate to bring it up to where it'll pass safety inspection.
Okay,
And I can tell you better then, but...
okay. Do you have plans for that truck, keeping it as a spare or something like that?
Well, basically, we've been using it to haul the asphalt recycler around. It's a handy
Okay.
little truck for that.
Okay, so you would be keeping it anyway,
Well,
or not?
I don't know if I'll keep it. I mean,
Okay, okay.
it's getting to the age where it's...
It's going to need a little bit more
Yeah,
work
it's
then?
time to get rid of it.
Okay. So Jeff, my question to you then, is it, you think it would be, I'll ask this a hypothetical question, because we have this discussion in different times around the table where we're in partners with other corporations, with other municipal units, and this sounds like it could be something that might be salvageable, the amount of times that maybe be used, we'll say at the airport or whatever. Would it be worth looking into or looking at? What's your thought? No commitment, but just a
No,
thought.
the last time we had a surplus truck of that size, we sold it to the waste park, and they're very happy with it. It's just talking to Glendon yesterday, and it's serving their purpose as well. I have talked to Mike Fields, the airport manager, made him aware that we may have a truck coming up that, relative to the age of the vehicles he has, this one would be almost like brand spanking new. So I think they'll probably be interested so long as it's serviceable, and so if once Dave has that assessment done, then they can make an informed decision.
Good, so where were we? Question's been called for the, okay. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Yep, CAO.
Your Worship, just on the tender, if the two tenders for vehicles today, if it's your pleasure at the end of the committee of the whole, if we could do a special council to approve those, then we can move forward.
Certainly. Okay, so we're ready for in camera? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Your Worship, I noticed in the previously distributed, we did get a letter back from the Minister of Education regarding the elimination of the elementary library positions. I'm a little disappointed with the letter because she's saying that she's confident the board will ensure library services will be available to elementary students within the schools. And I just wanted to voice my concern here because I appreciate what the board is doing, but I also know the board has been also doing their administrative support as well quite heavily. And I do wish the board would look within. Those library technicians that they've had in those schools were gold for those students. They were much more than somebody just passing out books. And to have those positions eliminated, I think is a real tragedy. And the minister basically simply has shrugged her shoulders and say, we'll let the board handle it, which is unfortunate. And I don't know what can be done there. we're a municipal government, we get no say over this, although we do contribute a fair chunk of change to the board every year.
That's an
But-
understatement.
But I would like, your worship, somehow that our voice be heard a little bit on this matter, because the parents are very frustrated, the teachers are very frustrated, and for some reason the board sees it as a way to save a few dollars. Put it this way, the amount of air conditioning down in the board office probably is equivalent to these library positions, put it that way, you know. So I don't know what you can do there, but I don't know what council feels, but I think it's something we should keep, as you say, your worship, on our radar as well, to keep an eye on it, because it is unfortunate. Because some of these schools have had beautiful libraries that have been donated over the years and been created, and to eliminate them to elementary students, we're struggling now with literacy level, is a real tragedy. So I just wanted to mention that.
So does the letter now go to the school board? Do you want to do that? What's that? Please?
I'd make a motion, your worship, that the town of Yarmouth write a letter to the Tri-County Regional School Board, copying with a copy of the minister's response to us, urging the board to take a proactive position to reestablish the library positions in elementary schools within Tri-Counties in the 2016-17 budget year.
I have to say this, okay? I just want to say this piece. I would love to know, because it says a couple times, they'll ensure library services will be available. So can we add somewhere in there that maybe they let us know how that is going to be available? I would love to know that, okay? Jody, you, okay? All right, so we're going to add that with your permission, okay? Anything further? Okay, question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Good. Anything else on this agenda before we go in camera? Okay, let's do it. Oh, you've got that set up. Okay, let's do that then. Yeah, me too. Yeah, good. Oh, yeah, we're going in the other room. Yeah. If it's in camera, we gotta, yeah. We're going in here, but then we're to discuss Ken's item, and then we're going in there.